now that you're looking back at this life after 80 some years, John, what do you make of everything? I know you're not a religious man. I feel like are a spiritual man to a certain extent, but what do you think is the meaning of life? What do you think is the greater point of this?
In a funny kind of way, I've always been interested, but I'd never been strong-minded enough to really study it. And in fact, last night I started reading a book, and I thought, this is really what I want to be doing once I've earned enough money to buy a little place in the sun, which I can't afford at the moment because that was crippling, that divorce. $20 million. It's a lot of money, particularly if you work for the BBC.
Yes, 30 million.
My favorite joke is I do a lot of work for charity, most of it for the BBC. But I was reading a book last night. I'm not religious, but I would say, if somebody said, do you believe in God? I would say, I don't know what that means. I do know that there isn't someone up there watching every transaction and making sure it works. You know what I mean? But I think there's other things going on. For example, I've been interested for 10 years at least in a group of people who used to meet at Esalen on the West Coast, where some very interesting discussions are held. And I now definitely believe that some people have an afterlife. I don't know if everybody does, but it's not a religious question. People immediately start thinking of talking about religion. No, it's a scientific question. What's the evidence for an afterlife? And I'm come to the conclusion that it's overwhelming.
Have you ever listened to the audio tapes of Terence McKenna? He used to speak at Esalen back in the 80s and 90s. He's now passed, but he used to talk a lot about, what is it all about? And he used to also talk about psychedelics a lot that would make him think more deeply about what it's all about. But that came to mind when you mentioned Esalen.
Terence McKenna. Yes. I don't know that name, but I used to have people going there like Fritz Perls and that marvelous man. I can't think of his name from now. It's the trouble as I get older. I notice it takes me longer time to get to Aldous Huxley. It's a longer time to get to memory, but I get there in the end.
Yeah, you get there in the end. That's the thing.
But I would love eventually to have the chance to do 3 one-hour programs, 6 30-minute programs, basically about all the psi phenomena that are going on, but with a particular focus on after death. And the idea that our consciousness is not produced by the brain.
Right.
Because that's the key to it. And there are many things that have happened that cannot be explained if you think that consciousness is created by the brain. But most people think, well, how else is it? Well, maybe it's more interesting than that.
Yeah, I've been lucky to have a lot of.
Don't read the literature. That's the trouble.
Yeah.
You see, Brian, people don't read the literature and they dismiss it because scientists like to be right, and they will say things like, that's not possible. And what they mean, as I said earlier, is we don't have a theory to explain that.